Did you know that the story of the patron saint of cooks is far more surprising than any recipe? Saint Benedict, a man born into slavery and prejudice, transformed his life through the power of faith and humility, and today he is an inspiration to thousands who face challenges, whether in the kitchen or in life. What if I told you he performed miracles that defy logic, multiplied food, and even showed that serving with love can be the greatest of powers? Prepare to discover a story that goes far beyond the stove, a journey that questions everything you think about success, suffering, and faith. Stay with me and understand why Saint Benedict is much more than a saint. He is a living example of transformation and resilience. The story of Saint Benedict begins at a point that already holds a powerful lesson. He was born free, at a time when almost everyone of his skin color was born in chains. This wasn't by chance. It was by promise. A farmer, moved by something greater, vowed to free the firstborn of his African slaves. And so little Benedict came into the world between 1524 and 1526 in San Fratello, Sicily, already bearing in his birth a sign that his journey would be different. Sometimes what seems like a mere detail, like being born free in the midst of slavery, is the first push of an extraordinary destiny. Just imagine being born at a time where your skin was a source of oppression, yet still carrying freedom as an inheritance. This shapes the spirit. From an early age, Benedict already bore the contrast between the weight of history and the lightness of promise. And here's something for us to learn. It doesn't matter where you're born. What matters most is how you transform your origins into a path. Some people are born with everything and throw it away. Others, like Benedetto, are born with almost nothing except a promise, and still leave a legacy. The question is, what have you done with what you once received for free? It's curious to think that, despite being free from birth, Benedetto grew up as if bound by an invisible mission. His freedom wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. In times when the children of slaves were born condemned to suffering, he walked among them with something rare: choice. This teaches us that sometimes freedom isn't in what the world gives you, but in what you decide to do with it. Today, you have the freedom to think, to act, to choose. But are you using it to build a purposeful life? Because that's exactly what Benedetto began doing. As a boy, from an early age, Benedetto knew the sweat of his brow and the burden of work. He didn't have school, he didn't have books, he didn't have any luxuries, but he had something that many, even with everything, end up wasting: character. His parents, even though they were formerly enslaved, instilled faith in him as if it were the only inheritance possible. And it was. Between one task and another, they taught their son that working honestly is a way to praise God. With every simple meal, with every prayer murmur before bed, Benedetto absorbed values that didn't come from universities, but from the heart of a home where God was the center. And this shaped his soul even before he knew what a vocation was. He grew up in the countryside, amidst dust and simplicity, far from the big cities and the halls of knowledge. But there, in that hard, silent routine, he developed an inner strength that many men never achieve. He learned by example. He saw his parents kneel and pray when a harvest was scarce, but also when it was plentiful. It was his real-life Christianity, lived in everyday life, that infiltrated him like a silent seed. While the world told him his color and condition would limit him, he discovered that faith was greater than any label. The poor, illiterate boy carried within him a living library, the wisdom born of example. And it's curious how God works between the lines. While many sought teachers in schools, Benedetto's teachers were suffering, gratitude, and prayer. It was on the farm, in the work corners, that his spirituality sharpened. When someone collapsed from exhaustion, he helped without complaint. When food was scarce, he shared what little he had. And when everything seemed to go wrong, he pointed to the heavens with the gaze of someone already conversing with the divine. It was thus, without theories, without diplomas, that Benedetto became a true disciple. Because what prepared him for his great mission was not a professorship, but the silent testimony of a life surrendered to God since childhood. Being black in 16th century Europe was, in itself, a sentence. And even though Benedetto was born free, his color betrayed him at every turn. Mockery, humiliation, contempt. He faced it all. But the most impressive thing wasn't what he suffered. It was how he reacted. He never raised his voice, never retaliated with hatred. Instead, he responded with silence, with service, and with prayer. Where many would have hardened their hearts, Benedito softened his even more. His life seemed to mirror the gospel. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. He didn't just hear that word. He embodied it. And that's why his life continues to resonate to this day. While others shouted, he remained silent. While they pointed their fingers, he extended his hand. And that wasn't weakness. It was strength in disguise. Because forgiving when wrong requires more strength than any revenge. Benedito understood early on that he couldn't change the skin he wore, but he could choose the spirit with which he carried it. The racism of the time tried to erase him, as if his presence were too uncomfortable to exist. But each time he was humiliated, he became even more of a light. Each insult was like a candle lit in his soul. And with that, he illuminated the dark corners of the world around him, without shouting, without confrontation, simply being. It's impossible not to be moved by this man's attitude. He could have given up, rebelled, hidden, but he chose to serve. And even more, he chose to serve with joy. At a time when dark skin was ground for imprisonment, Benedito became a symbol of freedom because he understood that true freedom lies in the soul. He walked among men as if nothing could touch him, and perhaps that was precisely the case, because what moved him was not the gaze of others, but the gaze of God. And that's the lesson he leaves us. It doesn't matter what the world says about you. What matters is what you decide to do with it. Benedito didn't enter religious life seeking titles, fame, or recognition. He entered to serve. When he joined the Franciscans, he didn't ask for a position, demand a position, or be seen. He simply wanted to follow Christ more closely. And that was all. He began as a hermit, living in the silence of a mountain, far from the eyes of the world. He washed floors, cooked, carried water, with a serene smile on his face. While many sought the altar, Benedito stood at its foot, taking care of everything no one wanted to do. And it was precisely this humility that made him exalted. Because when someone descends with sincerity, God raises them without fanfare. Even without knowing how to read or write, Benedito became an example among the friars. He was illiterate before men, but a doctor before God. His wisdom came from prayer, listening, and surrender. And no matter how much they tried to push him aside, grace pushed him to the center. One day, the improbable happened. He was chosen as superior of the convent. That's right. The simple, uneducated, black cook was elected leader among the brothers. And when that happened, do you know what he did? He cried, not out of pride, but out of fear, because he knew it was too big for him. But even so, he accepted, because he understood that when God calls, he himself empowers. And as superior, his posture didn't change. He continued to clean the floor, serve in the kitchen, care for the sick. He didn't sit on thrones. He knelt beside the weak. He governed with meekness and listened attentively. Many friars were surprised. How could someone so simple resolve conflicts with such wisdom? How could he advise with such clarity? The answer was invisible. Benedito prayed. And that's what we often lack. We want to resolve everything with logic, with force, with imposition. But true authority is born from a bent knee, a submissive heart, and a silent soul. This is how St. Benedict became a giant, without needing to climb anything. As the years passed, stories began to emerge that seemed unbelievable. Benedito, the silent cook, became sought out not only for his meals, but for miracles. It was as if something invisible, powerful, and serene flowed through him. People arrived sick and left healed. Others, burdened with pain in their souls, left in peace. He didn't use flowery words. He didn't make a fuss. He didn't charge anything. Sometimes, just a touch from him, a simple blessing, or a whispered prayer changed everything. The supernatural gifts he received from God, like the gift of healing and even bilocation, manifested themselves in the midst of routine. And this made his holiness even more authentic. He was extraordinary precisely because he lived the ordinary with absolute love. But what drew most attention wasn't the miracle itself, but the way Benedito behaved around it. He never boasted, never placed himself above others. He always gave glory to God, always looked away from himself. He understood he was merely a channel, a bridge. And perhaps that's why God worked so much through him, because his heart was free of vanity. His intentions were pure. His spirit was completely surrendered. And in the midst of this miraculous life, he kept his feet on the ground. He continued caring for the poor as he always had, offering not only food but also listening, welcoming, and presence. The convent, under his influence, became a shelter for many the world had forgotten. Benedito's miracles were not only invisible healings, but above all in the inner transformation he provoked in people. He had a gaze that pierced pain, a word that disarmed despair. And this can't be taught. It comes from intimacy with God. When someone said they were lost, he showed the way. When someone cried, he was silent with them. His charity wasn't distant pity. It was concrete empathy. He didn't give what he had left over. He gave what he had. And with that, he revealed a secret that many still haven't understood. That true holiness lies not in great deeds, but in daily fidelity to the little things. And he lived this like no one else. Reaching the end of his earthly journey, Saint Benedict departed on April 4th, 1589, leaving a legacy that would span the centuries. His simple life and miracles inspired so many that in 1807, Pope Pius VII officially canonized him, recognizing his holiness throughout the world. The canonization was not just a religious act, but the confirmation of a story of overcoming obstacles, faith, and love for others that continues to resonate. In Brazil, for example, where his devotion is strong, he is celebrated on October 5th as the patron saint of cooks, a direct tribute to his humble dedication in the convent kitchen. This recognition brought a universal dimension to Saint Benedict's life. He transcended the racial, social, and cultural barriers of his time to become a symbol of hope and faith for all. His example shows that holiness does not depend on origin, formal education, or social status, but rather on a heart willing to serve and love without reservation. This message still resonates today, especially for those facing hardship and prejudice, reminding us that it is possible to transform pain into strength and the simple into the extraordinary. Beyond devotion, his legacy is manifested in various traditions and celebrations around the world, especially among cooks and communities that value humility and service. Saint Benedict inspires not only the religious, but all those who see simplicity and faith as a transformative force. And it is this strength that lives on, showing that, regardless of where you come from or what you carry, you can make a difference with humility and love. His story is an invitation to look at life with eyes of faith and hands ready to serve. We have reached the end of this journey through the inspiring life of Saint Benedict, an example that shows how faith, humility, and service can transform any path, no matter where you come from. Now think, how can you apply this willpower and resilience to your daily life? What simple actions, like helping someone or cultivating patience in the face of difficulties, can make all the difference in your life? Reflect on the power of transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary, just as Benedict did in the convent kitchen. With small gestures, he changed the world around him. Are you ready to be an agent of this change? How about starting right now by valuing what seems simple, but can be sacred, and investing in concrete actions that nourish not only the body but also the soul? Want a practical tip? Try dedicating some time each day to helping someone close to you, or even learning a new simple recipe. Putting love into every step, just like Saint Benedict, who made the kitchen an altar of miracles and faith. This is your chance to make a difference, to elevate your purpose with humility and determination. If this story touched you, be sure to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any of these powerful lessons. We want to hear your opinion. What challenge are you willing to face to transform your life? Tell us in the comments and join this community that grows with faith, learning, and action. Let's discover together what happens when we decide to truly serve without fear and with an open heart. See you in the next video.